Week 9 of the fantasy basketball season, and here's a few centers I would look to sell off or trade this week. At high peak, the first guy's Mitchell Robinson of the New York Knicks, and unfortunately Robinson, he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks after breaking his hand and undergoing surgery. The other day is Robinson. On the season, he was ranked 65th fantasy basketball, 8.4 points a game, 8.4 rebounds, 1.2 steals, 1.5 blocks, 47% from the foul line, and 66% from the field. So Robinson, his numbers weren't all that great, but he was good at the percentages except the free throw. He was blocking shots. He was getting steals for your fantasy team. But like I said, I think he was overrated in some of the aspects of fantasy basketball with a ranking of 65th on the season. And some managers, they've dropped him in 5% of fantasy leagues. So he's only owned in 85% of fantasy leagues. I wouldn't drop Robinson. But if I could add him on with someone else in a deal and trade him off, I think this will be the week to do it. Because now the 6-week timetable, I believe, is what he's going to miss is Robinson with it. The Knicks, they're not going to rush him back either, I think. They got Nerlens Noel. There's rumors that Andre Drummond could be coming to New York. We'll see what happens with that. Because if they get Drummond, then Robinson, he's definitely going to not come back anytime soon. And if he's out the 6 weeks, that takes us to week 15 or 16 already of the fantasy basketball season. And I don't think most owners, even with the injured list spot, want to wait for that. So if you could get anything of decency for Robinson, I think you'd do it this week. The next center I look to trade this week is Enes Kanter of the Portland Trailblazers. And Enes, he's been a menace this season for fantasy owners and the Trailblazers, putting up huge numbers and big ball games. On the season, he's ranked 70th in fantasy basketball, 11.5 points a game, 11.3 rebounds, 1.1 assists for Kanter, 76% from the foul line and 58% from the field. And in the last few weeks, he's really stepped it up even more as Kanter, averaging 12.7 points a game, 13.6 rebounds, an assist a game, and 54% from the field is Enes the Menace. And he's a great scorer. He's a good rebounder. Just the only thing with him, he's not going to hit threes, and he's not a great free throw shooter, and he don't really block shots, but he's a guy I definitely could sell high. I think this week he's a walking double-double. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to have some games where he scores over 20 points, and he's another guy you could add on with someone else to get a big-time fantasy player, in my opinion. And in the last 3 games, he's had some good games as Kanter. February 12th versus Cleveland, 21 points, 13 rebounds, an assist, a block, 81% from the field. February 14th versus Dallas, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 85% from the field. And last night versus the Thunder, his former team, 8 points, 21 rebounds, an assist, but an awful 20% from the field. So Enes, he's got a knack for rebounding the basketball. And a few times this season, he's cracked 20 rebounds or more in a game. And I think it's definitely a great time to sell him high. Like I said, he's only going to score and rebound for the most part and have a pretty decent field goal percentage. But I think you could get a decent haul for him in a 1-for-1 deal or a 1-for-2 deal, or add him on. But just anyway, I think add him on in a trade, especially after a big rebound game like we saw last night, is a way to go here. The next center I would look to sell high is Clint Capela of the Atlanta Hawks. Clint Capela, he's been an absolute monster and a beast this season for fantasy owners. On the year, he's ranked 36th in fantasy basketball with 13.9 points a game, 14 rebounds, an assist, 2.2 blocks a game, 53% from the foul line, and 56% from the field. And in the last couple weeks, 14 points a game, 13.5 rebounds, 2 blocks, 46% from the foul line, 59% from the field is Clint Capela. And Capela, he's been a good player this season, but health has always been a concern for him, is Clint Capela. But I think with so high here, I don't think he's going to maintain the health or some of these huge ball games we've seen, like a 30-20 game we saw from him early in the season. And the last 3 games, 14 points, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks versus San Antonio, February 12th. February 13th, 24 points, 10 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. And then February 15th at the Knicks, a huge ball game where you could sell him off high just off this ball game, I believe. 15 points, 18 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 2 blocks, 63% from the field. So it's huge numbers. It's great gameplay. And I've had a couple questions over the last week or two about trading Capela. Should I trade him for this guy? Even another one, Clint Capela, for Chris Middleton. So deals like that I think are definitely possible in your fantasy leagues. A type of one-for-one trade where these guys, they're ranked in the mid-30s, high 40s type of deal. It's just depending on what positions you want and what type of trade you can make for selling a guy high. But Clint Capela is definitely a sell high candidate here this week. The next center is Raquan Holmes. I will look to trade off of the Sacramento Kings. And Holmes, he's been a great player this season in fantasy basketball, ranked 42nd with 12.8 points a game, 7.7 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.6 blocks a game, 79% from the foul line, and a whopping 64% from the field, which I believe he's the leader right now in field goal percentage in the NBA. But the last 2 weeks, the numbers, they've dropped off a bit here for Holmes. 12 points a game, 6.8 rebounds, 1.2 steals, 1.2 blocks, 77% from the line, and the field goal percentage has dropped to 57. And now he's also dealing with a little bit of an injury, with the knee injury, is Holmes. And Holmes, I don't think he's sustaining these stats. And to be honest, these stats aren't all that great, where they're really eye-popping on the season for Holmes with the 12.8 and the 7.5. In the last couple games, it's just been mediocre games, in my opinion. February 9th versus Philly, 10 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, and a block, 55% from the field. February 12th versus Orlando, 10 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. And then February 14th versus Memphis, 13 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, a block, 66% from the field. So like I said, those numbers, they don't jump out at you. And he's a player I think you could just package with someone else and get someone pretty decent in a deal, because I would sell him high. The numbers, they're dropping already, and I think they'll continue to drop as the league's catching on to Raquan Holmes and what he could do for the Sacramento Kings and the stats he's been putting up. In the fifth and final center I will look to sell high and trade this week's Kristaps Porzingis of the Dallas Mavericks. Kristaps Porzingis, he's been great, no doubt about it. And many people thinking you shouldn't look to trade him off your roster, but I say you should for the second week in a row, because can't trust him staying healthy. We've seen times where Porzingis, he just don't want to play at all as well. We saw it in the bubble last year. We saw it with the New York Knicks, him prolonging his injury before they trade him. And then they traded him, obviously, a couple seasons ago. On the season, he's ranked 27th in fantasy basketball, 20.5 points a game, 8.2 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.6 blocks, 85% from the foul line, 2.2 threes a game, 47% from the field. In the last couple weeks, the numbers, they've bumped up more as well. 23 points a game, 6.3 rebounds, 3 threes a game, 54% from the field. So he's a great sell-high candidate. While the numbers are up there, and him coming off a 36-point game a few nights ago, February 12th, and the last 3 games, 15 points, 4 rebounds, a steal, a 3, February 10th versus Atlanta. February 12th, like I mentioned, he had the huge ball game, 36 points, 7 rebounds, an assist. And then February 14th versus Portland, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, and he shot 55% from the field. So his value is skyrocketed right now and definitely at its peak. And I'm not saying dump Porzingis just for anything, but I'm saying sell him high and see what you can get for him. And now tonight's game, he's postponed, but the Mavs, they'll be back in action February 19th at Houston. But if you could get the right deal for Porzingis, I would definitely go out there and do it. I'm not saying go trade him for an Alec Burks and another guy who's not going to have fantasy impact. I'm saying sell him high while his value's up there right now. So that's a few centers I would look to sell high here or trade in week 9 of the fantasy basketball season.